Continuing the Mike Gallagher Show, Senator Marco Rubio, always welcome on our program to talk about this very difficult, complicated issue of immigration reform. Senator Rubio, welcome back. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
I'm so honored that you're willing to take a couple of phone calls. We appreciate you doing that because I want to give some listeners who are asking me tough questions the opportunity to ask you some of these tough questions. First, let's talk about this immigration amendment that you're introducing today. This would eliminate, I guess there was a loophole that kind of undermined the bill's new requirement that residential provisional immigrants have to achieve English language proficiency. Tell us about that, Senator.
Well, actually, we require that now of people that are applying for citizenship. This actually goes a step further, and it says that people who are part of this provisional status, the legalization status, that they'll have to know English when they apply for a green card. So the way the bill read was they could either know they could either show they're proficient or show that they're enrolled in classes trying to get proficient. And we eliminate the second part, which is the enrolled in classes. So we think 10 years is more than enough time for people to get proficient in English. And again, this is not designed necessarily to be punitive. I just truly believe that as part of any successful immigration reform, you have to have assimilation. Mm-hmm. And one of the quickest ways for people to assimilate into our culture and into our society is to speak the unifying language of our country, which is English, and this will expedite that. So I think for most of these people, that's not going to be a problem. They're living among us now. They know English or are getting just by having to know it and be successful. But I think for others, this will be a good requirement to have, and I think this furthers what I hope will be part of this immigration reform, and that is further assimilation.
And assimilation is something that is so important, and I hear that every day from people who say there seems to be an unwillingness by a lot of immigrants to assimilate into our culture, into our using our language and our sort of our parameters. And I'm so glad that this addresses this. Of course, border security is also tantamount, Senator, as you know. I want to bring Alan in here who wants to ask you about that very issue of border security and sort of what has happened in the past over border security. Hey, Alan, welcome to the Mike Gallagher Show. Say hello to Senator Marco Rubio.
Hello, gentlemen. My question is this. Didn't we do this once before with Ronald Reagan, and he was getting quite a few promises that they were going to build a security fence, and they didn't do it?
Yeah, we hear that a lot, Senator. Right. What about that?
That's true. It was done before, and they didn't do the security aspects of it. That's why we want to leave nothing to chance. So right now, the way the bill is structured, it says the Department of Homeland Security has to come up with a border security plan and a border fence plan, two separate plans, and they have to implement them. In addition to that, by the way, there's a mandatory E-Verify, which I think is probably the most important of all the measures. Didn't get nearly enough attention, and then it also has a system that has to be in place to track visitors to our country to make sure they're not overstaying the visas. Mm-hmm. The difference, the direction that I want to move the bill is, rather than leaving it to the Department of Homeland Security to design that plan, is maybe we should put the plan in the bill so that when you're voting for immigration reform, you're also voting for the border plan and the fence plan, so we know exactly what we're voting for, mm-hmm. and we can put things in place that we know work. So that's the direction that it's moving, and I think this bill goes much further in that regard than the 86 effort or even any of the other the subsequent efforts. It will mandate that these things happen.
Senator Rubio, if you can peel back the emotion right now and all the hyperbole, and there's lots of angst and everything, what do you think the chances are if you viewed it from today's perspective? How does it look? How much progress are you making within the corridors of Capitol Hill?
Well, I think there's a growing consensus that we have to pass immigration reform that modernizes our legal immigration system, that we have to improve the way we enforce our immigration laws on the border, in E-Verify, in the tracking system for visitors. And I think there's a growing consensus that we have to do something about the millions of people that are in this country illegally and that have been here for a decade or longer, many of them. I think the fundamental issue that remains to be solved is people are saying to us, and rightfully so, and one of the criticisms that's emerged since the starting point legislation was proposed is people are willing to do those three things, but they're only willing to do it if this never happens again. Mm-hmm. What people don't want to be is back here in 10 years talking about the mistakes of 2013. They want something on the border that is stronger than what's in there now,
sure. And
in particular that's specific, so that we're not leaving it up to the administration to cook it up. And so I think if we can get that done, I feel very positive about it. If we can't get that done and I don't understand why anybody would be against that, but if we can't get that done, then I don't think the bill has a chance. And I've said that now for the better part of 3 weeks.
Yes, you have. You also said Sunday, apparently in a Spanish-language interview with Univision, that you made, according to Byron York, you made the strongest statement yet that legalization of the illegals must happen before any new border security or internal enforcement measures are in place. Byron characterizes it, which is kind of interesting to me. He said that the legalization would be almost immediate. But then he goes on to admit that in his article, well, they have to pass background checks and pay fines. That doesn't sound like an immediate process to me.
Yeah, well, first of all, the context of the question was about the border security, and what they were saying is, what do you do with all these people in the meantime while you're spending 10 years securing the border?
Right.
And so the answer was, well, the first step in the process is a legalization process. It's not, nothing is awarded to you. You can't just show up and say, I'm here, I've been here 10 years, give me my legalization. You have to show up and you have to go through a process, and that process involves a national security background check, a criminal background check, which would disqualify you if you've committed crimes, and we're going to tighten that up even more.
Right.
You have to pay a fine. You have to start paying taxes. You have to be gainfully employed. And your legalization is not a permanent legalization. It has to be renewed every 6 years.
Right.
And every time you go back to renew it, you got to go through the same process again. The background check, you got to prove you've been gainfully employed and paying taxes. You got to pay the fine. You got to pay the fee. So there are conditions on the legalization. They're just specific to the applicant.
Right.
The second point I was making, and it was really a defense of the border security, is what we're saying is that before the green card process can begin, the permanent process, before people can become permanently legal, the border security stuff has to be completed. And my argument on Sunday and continues to be, why is that unreasonable? Why is it reasonable to ask for certainty when it comes to the permanent process, but not certainty when it comes to the border security?
Right, exactly. And I'm sharing with you some of the questions from listeners that I get all the time, and I'm so grateful that you're answering some of them. Fernando, quickly, you got about a minute with Senator Marco Rubio. Go ahead, Fernando.
Hey, Senator Rubio, thank you for taking my call. I'm a Cuban American. Now, my question is pretty straight. I mean, if these legal, they're living in the shadows, and for them to become legal, they got to start paying taxes, and they got to jump through all these hoops. What makes you think that they're going to do that? They'll just say, well, you know what? I'm just going to keep. I've been getting by now. Right.
That's a reasonable question, Senator, because a lot of people say that. Why would they be willing to go through the process?
Well, by the way, they don't qualify for any federal benefits either. So the only people that are going to come forward and be legalized like that and are willing to go through all that are the people that are actually looking to be productive, are people that are saying, look, we made a mistake in the way we came here, but the truth is we love America. This is where we want to raise our family. This is the country we want to be a part of. This is the economy that we want to live in. This is the country we want to help build. Those are the people that are going to come forward and be legalized. Are there going to be people that don't want to go through all that because they're here for some other reason? Yes. They won't be legalized. That means they won't be able to find a job because E-Verify won't let them find a job. They won't ever be able to access federal benefits because they're not legal, and so therefore they're not going to be able to survive that way. So my point is that's one of the reasons why we have to do this, so that we can identify which ones of those people that are here illegally are people that are actually, they made a mistake, but they want to be a part of America's future in a productive way. Those are the folks that are going to get legalized. We're going to be able to assist that. And I think it's going to be the majority of people that want that for their lives. There will always be those that won't qualify because they can't pay the fee, they can't pay the fine, or because they've committed crimes, or because they are here for the wrong reasons. But those are the folks that we also have to make sure that at that point become deportable.
Senator Rubio, we always appreciate you taking a few minutes to give us an update on how this is going along, and we always appreciate, and thanks to your staff too for helping to facilitate the appearance today. I so appreciate your willingness to come on the show, and we'll talk again real soon.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Senator Marco Rubio, joining us here on the Mike Gallagher Show. Again, a guy who's willing to say, time to roll up the sleeves, figure out a way to get it done, and I really do admire that. I like the idea of going through this and peeling this back. It's like all these other issues in front of us. It's a conversation worth having, and we're having it right here on the Mike Gallagher Show.